So I'm going to, I put the first one in the answered. So, hey, wanted to know what you would recommend saying to a husband who says you don't appreciate him enough. I'm kind of assuming this is the betrayed partner to the addict.
Well, first of all, as a general question,
Hmm.
taking out everything of what we do, just asking that question, what, oh, okay, great. We do have more. I'm just saying, that's a general question that could be answered here. But anyway, go ahead. What you know, recommending?
What would you say? That's
Divorce,
really
it's
challenging.
disclosure, and husband goes to 5 meetings a week. Um, well, I think I do have an answer for that. Hold on a second. Um, I've written about and absolutely believe that in early recovery, the last person who can validate how well I'm doing is my spouse, if I have one. Because while I may be used to depending on you for support and validation, which is great in a coupleship, hey, or friendship, hey Tam, I had a great day, good for you. But when I've betrayed and hurt you, you can no longer be the sounding board of support for my healing. You have to turn and get support from me because you don't trust me, and I have to turn outward to get support because you're so angry and I don't want to take that away from you. I have to get my own support. So to answer, but 5 years later, if my spouse were still, and Tammy can say whatever, I think she's had this experience too with other people. If 3 years later, somebody I was involved with seemed so committed that they're going to 4 or 5 meetings a week and, maybe therapy or whatever, I would turn to them and I would say, well, two things. One is I prefer they didn't ask, but I have another story about that at another time. But absolutely. I mean, this is someone who's working really hard, who's really committed. It's been a long time. Now you're probably in a relationship where you are more supportive in different areas. Um, I absolutely think that he gets to have an attaboy, but not on his timeline. And that's what I would say to him, being someone who has these issues myself. I will do the dishes and I'll say, honey, I did the dishes, you didn't say thank you. And my husband will say, it's been 20 minutes. So I understand that, but nonetheless, I think that for the work he's doing, he deserves, I appreciate your doing that at least.
Yeah, well, and so for those of you that are joining, there was another piece to it. I am the betrayed partner, and 4 years since formal disclosure. Husband
Right.
goes to 5 meetings a week and has a CSAT. So yeah,
Right.
I mean, so I had an experience. We're traveling, so my husband went for a walk. I had been for a run, and I was coming back, and he goes, "Looking good," like cheering me on today. And it was so funny. I run by myself all the time, and and just having him like cheer me on, like it felt nice. I wasn't looking for that, but it was, it's like, you almost got this, so because I had a mile to go, but like it is meaningful. I was thinking, I hope that you guys have a pattern of, sitting together, a couple times a week and having a conversation. And as part of that conversation and check-ins, I lost you, Dr. Rob.
No, I'm
Oh,
conscious. Don't worry.
okay. That's good. As part of that conversation, sharing, what is helpful. Now, I do, I don't get thank yous when I unload the dishwasher. I always tell my husband, thank you for unloading the dishwasher. It's just one of those things. Like I want to encourage good behavior, he'll never see this, so he won't hear me. But no, it's true. It's like, it's just so much easier to affirm, positivity. And so my concern is, if after this time, he's, going, you need to say good, say I did good, or if it's you're still angry, and I don't know which, or if either of those are the case. But I think having the communication of, I really appreciate it, when you affirm this, or or you saying, I don't like it, if you're pushing me, it feels false if I can't do it organically. But that those languages of love, like people have different things that they need that validate. Some people like gifts. I'm like, you do the dishes, I'm a happy camper. I mean, it's one of those things. It's what we're looking for from, from others is different based on who we are, and being able to enter into that space, is meaningful to the other person. I'm not a gift giver, or that's not my most meaningful thing. I know, but it's like when someone is, I try to know that so that, I can try, not always successfully, but I can at least
Tammy, you
try.
send
So
birthday cards more than anyone I know. It's so
I know,
respectful. But
but
anyway,
cards is different. I do. But anyway, what I'm saying is, is there some space where you guys can have a conversation about what your needs are and what your reticence might be? This is what I'm looking for, or I like this, or I need to be more intentional and affirm you with that, or it still hurts me. I'm still getting that hurt. And if that's the case, what do you need to do to get support for you? So that you can, relationships we're supposed to, not 100%, but we're supposed to enjoy and affirm to the best of our ability and be supportive, through the good and the bad. You guys have weathered a big storm, so that he is on a recovery journey. Maybe time to start enjoying the fruits of the labor, because you sure went through, the planting and the harvesting. All the crap. I'm doing a really bad farmer's
you're in
analogy,
the
but
Midwest
anyway.
though, so you
Yeah,
get
I
to use
am.
all
Can you
those kinds
tell?
of
Yeah, I got to the
words.
Midwest and there's blueberry farms, and yeah, anyway, so yeah. Anyway, so I guess my encouragement would be, yeah, like if he's really asking, like how can you guys come to a place where he isn't asking? That drives me crazy because you're asking this. But how can you step into, I'm doing these things that are meaningful and feel authentic to you, not just to placate him. So but honestly, good job. You guys are still, like, you're still
Yes.
navigating it, so good job.
Well, I want to add a couple of things, but this is a
Hmm.
high quality question. I mean,
Hmm.
the questions we often get here are much more painful and much more difficult. This is a lovely problem to be having, is, to what degree should I validate you? And how wonderful is that? And I think that
Hmm.
should give hope to other folks that there can be 5 years, that you can be negotiating your intimacy, that it doesn't always end up where you are right now. I think it's so thank you for that. I also wanted to say a couple of things. This is a great example. Um, One of the things we encourage so strongly is for the men we work with in particular to be more vulnerable. And this man was vulnerable with you. He said, "This is something I need." He didn't act it out. He didn't take it. And I think that's, as I say to, yeah, I say this all the time. It's like, if I don't need anything, if Tammy doesn't need anything, I move away because she doesn't need anything. But if she tells me what's going on with her, I feel compelled to move toward her. And so for him to open up to you is actually, from my perspective, for him, a very good thing, no matter what he asked for. He had an emotional need. He turned to you in an honest way. Great news. The other thing just about you, I thought, what you're being asked to do is to validate the person who hurt you. And um, there are many, many levels of forgiveness. Many, many people think, "Oh, I forgive you." It doesn't work that way. And so forgiveness might be, the problem is on my mind anymore, and I can really see us going forward in a positive way. But you may not have gotten to the "I want to validate you," part of forgiveness, which means I'm pretty much done with that anger. So anyway, I recommend looking at the stages of forgiveness. And there's a time when you just have to be inside, and then a time you want to take from them, and eventually you're able to share that, but it's a process. So you might want to look where you are in terms of grief and forgiveness. But what a great question. I could answer these all day.
But on to the next question. Betrayed partner here. During our full therapeutic disclosure 9 months ago, I found out that my SA husband has sexual, emotional, and relational fantasies throughout our 40-year marriage. He estimated at least one per month. Although he didn't cross the flesh barrier, this still hurts like hell. A few of his fantasies were with friends of mine from our church. Can you help me understand more about the role of limerence and fantasy play in an addict's brain? Thank you. By the way, he's doing all the recommended recovery work, CSAT 12-step sponsor, etc. So
I think, Tammy, I think you should start with that one, if you don't
well,
mind.
I want you to answer about the limerence and the more clinical things, but I want to tag into the it hurts like hell. Like, yeah, I know, and whether it crossed the flesh barrier. And so we have lots of partners of people who just did porn, and they are betrayed partners. It isn't just did porn, it is focusing elsewhere rather than, as we were just talking about, rather than turning to your partner, and expressing a need or want or desire, so it's turning away, and it's the secrets and lies and everything else. You've had 40 years of lies, 40 years of lies. That's monumental. And the hurt that it causes you to look at, was everything a lie? Was every person I've, like you said, friends of yours from church. So you're probably doing the rewind on, like all of the people through the 40 years. And was it this one? Was it that one? And that's taxing to you, overwhelming. But so I love hearing that he's doing the work, and hope, I mean, it's only 9 months since disclosure. I don't know how, or yeah, since hormonal therapeutic disclosure, I don't know how long since discovery, but hopefully he's on a path and you're starting to see, incremental changes. Too early to trust him completely. And you, even with Dr. Rob giving an excellent explanation about limerence and all that kind of stuff, it still won't make sense to you because your brain doesn't think like this. You would never hurt him, and like you would never hurt him like that. You are putting your relationship first. So it's challenging for people, I always say, with normal or usual brains that are, to go to an addict brain, but the brokenness is real. And so you love someone who's broken. Your 40 years weren't all a lie. There were true and meaningful and good things, but he's got some issues. But the good news is, from what I'm reading, he's working on changing, and he hasn't just gone, well, I've been doing like this forever. So I mean, there's hope, is what I guess I'm saying. So, all right. So thoughts on the
I know
limerence
you
and
want to talk
brain?
about limerence, but I
I
want to I
do,
want to say
or
something about
whatever.
the
Mm-hmm.
question in general first,
Mm-hmm.
which is I know this is really hard to understand. I think you understand it intellectually. It's really hard to take in into your heart, which is, it doesn't matter. This is someone who's done this his whole life with everybody who's in his world. He did it at work. He did it. In other words, who it is very painful for you, but it means nothing to him. Not really, because he's actually saying in some level, well, I did this with this person and that person and this person. And when you hear that, as Tammy was talking about broken, this is a therapy issue. I mean, yes, it's something to work on the 12-step programs, but this is him in my mind, and I'm not trying to make you feel any differently for him, but in my mind, this is someone who has been desperate all of his life to have a mother, for example, who loved him, or had to fantasize looking at other. I know I used to fantasize at the holidays, especially. I'd look at other families and I think, oh, their life must be like this. I wish I was there. Well, he may be looking in his mind for every woman he knows. I mean, I think there are psychological pieces to this. What I appreciate, he didn't act them out as far as we know. And I think that, well, you've had disclosure, and that really speaks even more to it being an emotional problem. And let me say, when I work with the guys in Seeking Integrity, and I'm going to be there tomorrow, guys, I have clients who their acting out was never with anyone they knew and never with anyone around their home or their environment. I knew other people who were doing the things they were doing, only when they went out of town with people they would never meet again. And all of that has to do with the therapy piece. Both these people are looking for something very broken inside, but and that's kind of how the addiction plays out. But what they look at and how they look at them and what they're trying to get, sexual or romantic, that's part of their brokenness, like Tammy said. So what I want you to get out of your head is, and I know this is going to be hard, he really wanted to have sex with my sister-in-law, and he fantasized about the two of them running away together and leaving me. I think you could say that about 100 people that he's looked at. So it doesn't feel any better for you, but this is not about you. It's not about your neighbor. It's not about anyone at church. It's about the brokenness in the man that you care about. And I'm glad he's telling you this. He might stop telling you every single person he sees. I don't think that's going to make you feel any better, but he could certainly say, I found myself distracted by somebody today. By the way, if he's not involved with Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, SLAA, that particular program is a lot about repeated romanticizing and fantasizing and getting in emotional relationships that are really problematic. So that some time on SLA online might be useful for him if he goes to a different program. Anyway, I'm done. You're
Okay.
done.
The
We're
next
done.
question is what? No, we're not completely done. We got more questions. What if I what,
Oh,
this is from a betrayed partner. What if I just cannot forgive the betrayal? How do I heal and move forward? Hmm.
is this the same person?
I don't, let's pretend it's not. So let's,
Okay.
but
Because if it,
I mean, whatever you want to.
let me
Okay, go
try
ahead.
with it is and then go to it isn't.
Okay.
So if this was the person above, I would say it's only been 9 months,
Well, what
right?
if
Look at
it's
the
been the
first
4 years?
sentence.
No, if you, I don't think it is. So let's go with it. It's not,
No, the disclosure was 9 months ago. So what I would say is it's only been 9 months
but
since the
it's different names
disclosure.
on those. So this
No,
is
no,
not
I'm
time to,
giving,
okay.
no,
Okay.
I'm
All
saying
right.
I
We're
will,
taking that kind of, gotcha.
I just was going to contrast. It was an
Hmm.
opportunity. Thank you, Tam. I didn't mean to throw you off. I'm so sorry. It was an opportunity to say, if this was the person above, I would say, oh, it's only been 9 months since disclosure. You need to be kinder to yourself. You need to forgive that you're not ready to get, to let go of the issues. And you are probably healing fine. You are moving forward. You're here and you can breathe and talk. So if it was the person before, that would have been my response. Thank you, Tammy, for letting me do that. Now, what is the question itself?
So what if I just cannot forgive the betrayal? How do I heal and move forward? So say this is the first person and it's been 4 years and I'm feeling stuck. I mean, like,
Well,
yes,
let
there's
me
a
try.
period of time. So, if it's
Right, but
9 months or, yeah.
and you're, Tammy, I know what you're going to say, which is it's not just about the time. It's, do you see this person taking regular actions toward change? Are they reading the books? Are they going to the podcasts? Are they taking the courses online? Are they going to 12-step meetings? What are they doing? And not because you asked them to, but because they've taken this on as something they're committed to. So what I'm saying to you is, healing and moving forward and then eventually beginning to really heal the betrayal is not up to anything to do with you. It's you're observing, if this person you care about is truly taking this on. And through that process, you will find a way to forgive the betrayal, which is a long time away. So at 4 years, get support for yourself. Make sure you're not alone. We offer, and I think it's great to say this, at no cost, right, whatsoever. There are groups you can go, support groups. Go and listen to other men or women in those groups, depending on which ones they are. Go to the group where people and listen to what people are saying. This is how I learned forgiveness. This is what I saw as healing. You're in the right place, by the way, and there's no cost to those groups. You're always welcome to
Hmm.
join. And also, you're in the right place here. And at the other end, just to say, we do teach a betrayed partners course, and I'm going to mention that because it is a place where we actually teach the different stages and level sort of issues you go through and what healing is in the process. So you can learn. It sounds like you have more learning to do, and there are 100 books on this subject. So, and we can recommend some. In fact, Tammy, they could write you and you could recommend books, I'm sure.
You can, I'll put it in the chat too, but Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. But I think, we've done some webinar series. Debbie McCrae has done some great ones on the healing grieving process. I mean, honestly, I'm going to back it up. So I can't. What if I can't forgive the betrayal? Honestly, I hear from partners who feel like they can't forgive themselves because they feel like,
Mm.
they got manipulated and things. So I think it really is a healing process, and there are stages. Debbie McCrae, like I just mentioned, did a great series on grief, and I think there's grief involved, and I think that's part of the healing process. Being angry, but Dr. Rob is right. I absolutely is like it. You can forgive a broken person and move beyond the relationship. I still think forgiving at some point so you're not carrying around that toxicity, but everybody gets to choose. But if you're in a relationship, if you see somebody really working to change, really showing up for the relationship, not perfectly, that's really helpful to a healing process. So there's a lot of components with this. I would strongly encourage you to work with a qualified professional to get some support. Betrayal trauma is real. Maybe do some body work, somatic experience, EMDR, and kind of see, and often, it's touching on some older wounds. And so separating those layers of like, this is the betrayal from now, there's old stuff. I'll get to that, but I need to, get some support for that, for this in this moment. And I did in the chat add the betrayed partner work group starts this Wednesday. So it's Monday. So 2 days from now. Angela Spearman does a great job. There's level 1 and level 2. These are 6-week courses, 90 minutes per week. We also have sex addiction 101, out of the doghouse, porn addiction 101, inner child, the healing or why men struggle to love. But I haven't checked, I'm traveling, but there were a couple spots left. We added a few more because it was over full. So, inner child and attachment wound are all, and then the couples healing from betrayal work group starts in October, and we're adding more. We've got more because we want to give you a foundation to start with.
How do
Hang
you
on.
do this? How
It's
do you do
crazy.
this? Remember
but
all of these things.
This is how my hair got gray. So, so here's the deal. We want to support you in the early stages, and we've got all the free resources on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. But we also want you to go, okay, now I got this foundation. So now I'm ready to look at some of these other, layers, and it's really good and meaningful work. And you're working with somebody who's qualified to teach it, but also connecting with peer as to help support you, and you support them. So low cost, really good, solid work. So not therapy, not treatment. Therapists recommend these to their clients because they see how helpful they are in doing the work, with them. So, okay, that's enough, right?
I just want to say that Tammy worked so hard from the very beginning to start with one workshop and then another one and another one. I don't think it's just about, we want you to take this. I think don't answer this because I know what you'll say. I think she's really proud of the work that she has done and the people that are being helped there. And I don't think she's trying to say, oh, take this, take that. We are plenty busy. But I think I'm making this up, Tammy, because I know you pretty well, that you go to those, you attend those, you see people sign up, and you realize that people are getting help who weren't before. They've been in therapy for 3 years, but they have no idea how to look at what happened to them. So anyway, if you guys never take a course, just know that Tammy's really helping people, because I try to validate her. She doesn't like it, but I try.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that, but it is about providing resources, and people are kind, and they write to me and tell me how meaningful it is. And those are precious moments for me, because I do talk to lots of people who are majorly in pain in the moment. So it is this is why we do the work, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful when people get the help they need. So, okay.
I have, one thing I wanted to add to the betrayal question. Some of you may know I do consultations, and I sit for 2 hours with a couple generally to help them figure out how to move forward. And it's very typical for someone to call Tammy and say, I'd like to set up a consultation. And it is a spouse, not the person who has the acting out, but their partner. And generally it's a wife. And when I have the two folks in front of me, and the addict says, I've really started doing some work. I've been listening to this, and I've been going to that, and I've been reading that. And then my question is, who set up this appointment? Well, she did. Who told you about the blog that you've been reading? Well, she did. How did you get the books? Well, she read it and then she gave it to me. I mean, a real judgment or way to judge for me, someone's sobriety and someone's commitment to healing is, are you as a spouse hand feeding them the things that they need to do? Because I have a blog, I have a podcast, a lot of stuff we give away free. Are you pointing that person toward every single thing you found? Or are they showing up saying, I heard the podcast or I read the blog? Because that's where trust comes in, is if I see someone really taking responsibility for their own problem, not trying to prove anything to me, or even worse, ask you to help make it better for me. So anyway, I get upset when I'm working with a couple and I hear that, desperate plea from a spouse to make it better. And then I ask who found this and who found this? And it's never the addict. Not never, but not often enough.
Rarely,
anyway,
so.
Thanks for letting me do that.
Okay. So the next question is, my wife has asked me, this is somebody apparently that was the betrayer. So my wife has asked me to give up the relationship with two family members who knew about my acting out. However, my wife still hangs out with her friend who acted out too. What are your thoughts?
Would you, again, Tammy, I like to gather my thoughts. So
Okay.
if you don't
To
mind.
me, this is, I can only take care of my actions and reactions. So, I mean, I think you can discuss, I'm working really hard on this for our relationship to continue forward. It would be really helpful for me if we can, work towards this. What her friend does, I got, her friend is her friend and whatever, but for the two of you, is there a healing path for the two of you? But you acted out, and but I guess I'm wondering, okay, here's another little thought I just had. Do the two family members, were they part of your acting out? Were they complicit in your acting out? So like they knew about it and didn't tell her? That would be so then they're
That's what
also
I think.
betraying her. Okay, yeah, I just
Right.
had that clue. Okay, it wasn't you told them about it, it was they knew about it and they didn't tell. So she feels betrayed by them. So they're part of your betrayal posse rather than your healing posse. So to me, I'm like, they aren't safe for her either. So it isn't like tit for tat. It's like, what do you need to do to be a person of integrity? You need to work on you. I would highly suggest that you participate in the Sex Addiction 101 work group. I put the link for the work groups on. That would probably be a great place to start, maybe out of the doghouse, but take a look at those. Forget your wife and who she's hanging out with. What do you need to do to show her that you are able to be trustworthy?
Thank you. See, it really helps if you go first, Tammy. It really does organize how I think. So thank you for that. I have a podcast with a guy named Dr. Stan Tatkin, and I think this is a great time to say something about what he taught me. And I absolutely hold this as the highest value. I think Tammy too, actually.
Me too. I really like this one.
You
Yeah.
quote this a lot. So
Hmm.
in any case, we talked about what a healthy relationship, what it really, really makes to make both members of a couple feel loved and considered and like adults. And basically, he said, whenever you're making a decision for yourself, it's probably not a great thing for the relationship. Whenever you're making a decision for your partner, it alone, it's probably not a good thing. Your decisions have to be made about what's best for the relationship, not what you want, not what you think. And I thought that's really it, isn't it? Because um, if I if my giving up these relationships would be best for both of us, not what I want, not what would make her happy necessarily, but what will be the best thing for both of us, then I'm answering it in the right way. Does your harassing your wife about how she spends her time with people you also don't like? What's the best way you should handle that with your wife that'll be best for the relationship? If it were me, I wouldn't say anything, but that's up to you. She runs her life, you run yours, she runs her. She's not the addict here, so she can hang out with whoever she wants.
Yeah.
I did have write something else down, Tammy,
Yeah.
and you guys know that I can be very direct. At least the clients, when they're in seeking integrity, certainly know that. So I do want to say this with all due respect, and this is someone who comes regularly, so I want to be nice. But like, how old are the two of you? It sounds like a couple of teenagers. Like, well, you did this for 2 months, and now you can have this. And is this what the two of you are really focused on? How about your own healing with each other? Not, well, you stole 5 of these, and now I want to take one. And I mean, it does sound to me like a no. Well, I'm not making offense. I'll say it. Stand behind what I say. It doesn't sound like two adults who have been faced with desperate losses and are worried about how to heal them. It sounds like people who are worried about things that are relatively minor and might even be a distraction. Doesn't mean they don't feel minor, but sitting back here and seeing and hearing what I hear all the time, and Tammy does too, there's probably bigger things for you to worry about. And yeah. So anyway, that's all I was going to say.
I will add, what do you need to do to heal you so she wants to hang out with you? That would be, that you're a guy that she wants to gravitate to. No, seriously. I mean, it's like,
I get it.
you get it. Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's
Next
move on.
question. Betrayed partner here. Is it possible for an SA who appears to be devoid of any empathy and struggles to express his emotions other than his pent up anger, which actually suffer from alexithymia as a result of early childhood trauma. I hopefully said it right.
Yeah. So let me just quickly say what I see. First of all sex addicts, we all struggle with empathy, and every addict struggles with empathy. We think of ourselves first. We're used to doing what we want to do and shoving everyone else on the way when we're in active addiction. And to be honest, many of us never experienced a lot of empathy growing up, and we certainly don't know how to give it. So I've often heard said, I'm sure Tammy has too, that empathy is like the last piece that develops, and it takes a really long time. So I'll say one more thing about that. I did write a book about this. I have found it to be helpful. It's called Out of the Doghouse, a relationship saving guide for men caught cheating. We teach a course in this. One of the things I found over many, many years that men are not particularly understanding of what it takes to heal a wound like this with a woman. And we often think that candy and flowers and being really nice for a few months is going to earn us back what we want. And so that's why I wrote the book. But so there are ways for him to look at empathy, to learn how to act empathically, to believe. And when he, at some point, hopefully has real empathy for himself, he'll be able to develop empathy for others. However, the second part of it concerns me, other than his pent up anger, which how is that coming out? How is that affecting you? You know, so many of you I hear from, and also bring your impact letters into therapy and seeking integrity. And I am sometimes, well, I am a lot surprised that when you tell us what you've been going through, I hear things like, I've had things thrown at me, I was held down, I was verbally abused, the wall, you know, he hit the wall or whatever. And, you know, your focus is so much on the betrayal, and that's what the work, you know, that's what brought the person in and all that. But I hear from a lot of you that are abused in ways that I don't think I would accept someone that I love experiencing. And so that all for me comes out of pent up anger. You see anger, how is that being expressed? How does that affect you? And by the way, people who are unable to manage their anger are not necessarily people who are working hard on their recovery. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if you're getting blamed. You know, I wouldn't be so angry if you didn't. So that second half is much more concerning to me than the first half, because I want everyone to be safe and everyone to start working toward healing. So Tammy?
Well, I actually know, I believe I know who this is. And you know, this person is not in recovery, may have stopped the acting out behavior, but
Oh, I
has
see.
done zero you know, on healing. So of course there's pent up anger, because it's a pressure cooker, because they're not using the tools to do something different. So you know, da 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 da, boom, you know, that's, but at the end of the day, that ends up being his choice. So to you, you know, what do you need to do to be safe? You know, to not be at the, you know, at the brunt end of the anger. I mean, you know, like, that's unacceptable, you know. So if he's chosen not to do the work, then, you know, you know how I feel about you. Take care of you. So
And I am just saying, I was going to say, yeah, the focus here is not, I would just take your focus out, even in asking this question. I want you to get your strength not from whether or not you get empathy from this person, but from the support that you can grow for yourself.
yeah,
So,
and continuing to look for whys to explain. The why is irrelevant. You know, it's you know, how is he willing to move forward? And you know, he has shown consistently that he doesn't want to do anything about that. So you could have, you know, some exotic diagnosis for something, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, if somebody doesn't want to change, they aren't going to, which almost leads into the next question. How can you tell if an addict is struggling to change outside of acting out, honesty, transparency, and consistency, from an addict who doesn't want to change enough?
well, I have to say, who defines enough?
Mm-hmm.
Because your version of enough may be very different than mine. Um, And I'm not really sure I'm not sure how the question comes together. Maybe I'm not understanding. And how do you understand if an addict is struggling to change outside of acting out if they don't want to change enough? And something about, can you help or
I
rephrase
will
this? I'm
try.
sorry.
So to me, this is recovery is a process. Abstinence, like I just said, you can stop the acting out and you can still be an a-hole. Dr. Rob has talked about that before. It's like, there's lots of alcoholics who stop drinking, and that isn't enough. That is, they stop drinking and they're a dry drunk. They haven't changed anything. Change is a process. We talk on some of the other webinars too. It's 2 to 3 years you start seeing real transformation, 3 to 5 years, and then as long as they don't go, well, I got this handled, now I don't have to keep doing it. It's a transformation. So but it's also progress. And I've shared this on other webinars. I've been in recovery a while. Every so often I go, I wish I was all wrapped up with a bow and I could go, yes, I'm like, it's not the reality, but I am intentional. So like, I look at things, my life and, progress and room for improvement. But I also am going like, I like the person I am now more than the 2 years ago. I am confident 2 years from now, I will be able to say the same thing because I'm willing to do the work. So is it fast enough? Heck no. If I could have read a book and gotten it magically, and I went to treatment. If I could have left treatment and been all fixed, woohoo! But that isn't the reality. It has been a journey, and I continue to learn and grow. And I'm grateful. I used to whine about it, but now I'm going like, thank goodness I have the opportunity to continue to grow, and strive for, something new and different, and like myself better. So I'm kind of now grateful that I don't get all wrapped up with a bow. So, but the enough, that feels like I want my addict to be different enough, so that I can feel safe. I get it. But if you are seeing positive change, appreciate that, be hopeful of that, communicate what's realistic, what you're really looking for, in the relationship from each other. Hopefully you're doing check-ins with each other so that you're actually talking about these things, and how can you navigate the gap of like, I want you to be here. And he's like, I'm doing the best I can and I'm here, and I'm saying he and she, but if you're seeing action, Dr. Rob talked about it before. If you are seeing this person take real action, then change comes, and it can feel kind of false at first. It's awkward, but over time you will continue to see growth. So, and hopefully that stress will lessen too. So does that make sense, Dr. Rob?
Yes. Sorry, I put a book in the chat. I wanted to say something also about that just before we stop, which is, simply the question, which is, how do I know that this person is in recovery, or how do I know, how can you tell if an addict is struggling to change? And, we've talked about 12-step meetings, we've talked about therapy, we've talked about books and blogs, but the one thing I don't talk about enough is that you will see them having relationships with their peers. Now, if they're someone in group therapy, or they'll be talking to someone at 12-step meetings or at church, but you're going to see them reaching out. This is a sign to me that they're getting well. They're reaching out and they're having relationships with other men, if they're men, unless they're gay men, in which case, whatever. But hopefully they're having relationships with their peers in recovery. They're going out for coffee. I have seen and been part of a bunch of guys who suddenly decide, we want to go to the track and watch cars, every other weekend or once a month, or, so I would look for men in particular to be joining hobbies, to getting involved more with your children, with the church. I mean, things that are important to the family also, that our guys should and do jump into for the first time, real family life. I was dealing with an angry spouse the other day, and he kept saying, she's angry, she's so difficult, as addicts tend to complain about our spouses. And she was furious. She was very, very angry. But when I listened to why she was angry, it was the simplest things. It was, I run everything around here. I hate to say this, but he's never cleaned, he's never made food, he's never done the laundry, and he keeps promising to be supportive, but he doesn't actually do it. And I can't tell you how meaningful that is in terms of change for a partner to simply see, oh, you haven't got fired this week, or you're helping with these things that we don't deserve an award for just showing up for the things we should show up in a family, but you should see those changes, because we're engaged. Even if we don't want to be, we are engaged with the family, and we're thinking of you guys, or you, not just ourselves. Anyway, let's move on.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay.
Hi, Rob and Tammy. My PA spouse admitted to being sexually
Or an
aroused
addict.
yes, by my son's new teacher. While I appreciate the honesty, when I asked, he stated he stopped himself when he saw a ring on her finger. I asked him why he would honor a stranger's marriage but not our own. Can you help me understand this thought process? My heart hurts. He's allegedly sober since 7/21, going to therapy biweekly and on step 8.
Well, let me just start by saying something that many of the spouses will not like, which is, if being aroused by another person is a slip for him, breaks his sobriety, means he's starting all over again, then he needs to tell you that. But it's not, I'll be myself as an addict. It's not, we should not go to you with every thought, every fantasy, every time we look at someone on the street. That's not your job, and you'll never forgive us if you keep hearing every thought that goes through our heads. We are in the process of acting our way into healing, but that doesn't, it's coming from the outside in. It doesn't mean that our thoughts and fantasies, and I got to tell you, 33 years in, and there was a time about a couple of years ago where something happened, and my first thought was, I want to go see a sex worker. Now, I didn't. I called a friend nearby and I said, let's go to coffee. But I didn't march home and say, guess what, honey? I thought of seeing a sex worker today, because I hadn't done anything. In fact, what I did was the right thing to do. So I think that not acting out, not crossing the line to whatever it is acting out, which is touch or affairs or porn, that is something that if we go beyond, you absolutely need to know. You need to know if we've done something that has meaningfully violated our commitment and our trust in each other. Again, you need to know. But my looking at someone and getting aroused by them and having these thoughts and feelings is what I need to bring to my sponsor and my therapist and the people who are there to support me, and we can work on it and help understand it. And the most I need to say to you is, I had a little bit challenging day, but I'm doing okay. The rest of it doesn't belong with you, or you will never forgive me. Every time I have a thought or a fantasy or look at someone walking in the mall, you will never begin to heal unless I narrow what I say to you to the things that are truly concerning for both of us. So spouses, I know you're going to say some of you, well, I want to know every thought, and I want to know, I just want you to know, even if you did, you wouldn't feel any better. As Tammy says a lot, we ask questions and we ask questions and we ask questions. And we'll say as partners, I just need to know this one more question, and then I'm going to feel better. This is our delusion. And the reality is questions just bring up questions. So hearing this information is just going to make, I think, you feel less safe, and it's not going to make him any better. So I'm not answering the part about the ring and all that, because I think there's a bigger, and here, I'm sorry, and it happened, right? He told you about a thought and a feeling, and he told you completely about it, which again, I think he might have brought to someone else, but does need to talk about. And then the first thing you write about is my heart hurts. How could he honor someone else's ring other than my own? Well, if I'm hearing this absolutely correctly, he had a fantasy, but it brings up for you all that heart hurt, which you deserve. But it's not necessarily something he needs to be telling you when telling any partner, because this is where you're going to end up. So anyway, Tammy, I have blathered away. I think in part because I worry that their spouses are going to say, well, how can be an expert if I don't hear everything and know everything? And, I worry a little bit about the spouses who are in a place of Dr. Rob is telling the addict that they can keep secrets. So can you help me out here?
Yeah, no, yeah, it's not about keeping secrets, but first thing I was like, this should have been called to the sponsor, because here's my, now every time you see your son's teacher, oops, so sorry. Every time you see your son's teacher, what are you going to be thinking? You're going to be thinking about your husband being aroused by the teacher. And it's not the teacher's fault. The teacher has nothing to do with this. So I think this is a conversation with your husband. I appreciate that you were being honest. what I think is the best plan for you is to talk to your sponsor, talk to your therapist, have a check-in, like we just said, the Thanos check-in is like, what's challenging or whatever. It's more about, like I had a thought and I called my sponsor. I did what I needed to do. Oh my gosh.
You're
Someone's
popular
persistent.
tonight.
Yeah, no, it's same person. So it's one of those where at some point having the conversation of like, I understand that you're going to have these thoughts. I expect you to work your program, call your sponsor, call your peer support group. You can tell me, like Dr. Rob said, I had a challenging day. But man, yeah, that is, you will constantly be thrown in the churn if every time he has a thought, or whatever. And, and yeah, kind of a lack of empathy, major lack of empathy to go, well, she had a ring on her finger, so
He
I
shouldn't have
get
said
it.
anything.
No, I get it. But
Yeah.
Dr. Rob, it's the last thing to come. It's, this would be his executive part of his brain, and it wasn't really online when he was telling you this stuff. But I do appreciate that he was trying to be honest. He just didn't do it particularly well. So this is great opportunity for him to talk to his therapist and his sponsor about, and you. I mean, you can say, here's what I would like in the future. Ask for what you need. And hopefully I need to know that you're talking to your sponsor, that you're taking care of things. I don't want to hear who you're attracted to. So,
And I'm going to do a Tammy. I'll call this a Tammy with Jane right here, which is, what are you doing for yourself for support? Are you going to 12-step programs? Are you coming to the free spouse? Isn't this what you would do, right?
yeah.
Are you going to the free spouses group? Do you have someone you're working with? Because I understand reaching these conclusions and I understand your heart hurting. I really, really do. But this isn't so, and I'm thrilled that you're here. I'm really glad that you're
Me
here.
too. Yeah,
But
I was
you
thinking that.
really need the support of other women. I assume this is a woman who have, gone through this. I saw something or heard something and I immediately lost all faith and thought, oh my God, how do I, you're not alone in that. I think hearing it from other women or men who are experiencing it would be really helpful. And what I mean by doing a Tammy is she will often go back to, but where are the basics here? Are you going to
hmm
support groups? Are you
hmm
reaching out? All of that kind of stuff. So,
Well, and to your point, like the betrayed partner work group starts on Wednesday. Like more support, more education, more cognitive, things, and actions you can take. So that you aren't the ping pong ball. That you have boundaries on communication. You have boundaries on expectations of what you hear and how you hear it. So setting up, taking care of you is exactly right. So. Okay, next question. Do you think the green book or the big book is more useful to a porn addict? I'm in meetings, I find both being referred to. I only have the green book. Should I get the big book too? I'm assuming big book of AA and the green book is the S group.
now that's interesting because my head went to the big book, the essay book, the big, because
Oh,
that's kind of like a big schmagoggle. Um,
a big
well,
schmoggle. That was a made up
but
word.
let's go with your, well, I'm a New Yorker, right? That'll always be inside of me.
Mhm.
Um, what let's go with your example of the AA big book, which is the big book, right?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
I, I'm like, read
I know
one.
what you're going to say.
Read one. Like there's so much similar. I mean, like the 12 steps are the 12 steps. The thing about the AA big book, I actually I go to my meetings and I'm reading. Yeah. Anyway, but like a lot of it's kind of archaic. Like there's references to stuff that is, like you have to take it back to historical context. So, I think a lot of the other books have more current references and may be helpful. But here's the other thing. Uh, we have a porn addiction 101 work group that we have a porn addiction workbook for. Now it's different than a big book, but it's helpful in working through getting a plan, but at the end of the day, the 12 steps are really, there's very little difference in the 12 steps, throughout the nuances, but they're substantially the same. So whatever one you're going to read, great is my thought.
I'm going to speak to what is the issue. If you're looking for the, there isn't any alcoholic who sorry, let me say that backwards. Every alcoholic really does need to read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and understand how it was formed and what it means. And so, you know, if you're an alcoholic in recovery and you're a sex, by the way, if you have both issues, please buy both. In fact, there's nothing wrong with buying both and reading both. But I love the Green Book. I think so. What we're talking about is the primary literature that those people who go to Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous are encouraged to buy and read. It's where the explanation of the steps is. It's where there are stories of people who have sex addiction problems. And there are a bunch of those books with different 12-step programs, like the Big Book of AA. But I tend to think if you're a sex or porn addict, that that Green Book is particularly helpful from SAA. However, as you heard me say earlier, if the issues involve romance and love addiction in addition, or, you know, fantasy, I think Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous big book, their primary book, is excellent. By the way, oh my God, Tammy, I can't believe my brain is taken up with all of this stuff. I don't know how I get to dinner.
There's some
It's what
stuff,
we do.
isn't there? Yeah.
It's what we do.
Okay. The next question, essay here. I've been to numerous classes, read various books, and I'm discussing numerous issues in therapy. All of these are good at identifying problems, but are often vague about the solution. There's a lot of talk about doing the work, getting rid of the toxic shame and getting past the trauma. But what are you to do actually getting over the shame and trauma seems to be the missing bit. I'm just coming up on 2 years out of discovery. I'm finishing up the write-up on my 9th step and have been had a CSAT for over a year, but there seems to be a piece missing about fixing the issue. How does one actually fix the trauma and get over the toxic shame? Just saying work isn't helpful, and I don't expect it to fix immediately, but I'm having the same PTSD responses and having the same fears.
Tammy, again, I think it would be really helpful for you to start. And there's so
Yeah,
much here. Like, this is
there
like
is.
9 questions,
Yes, it is. So,
and they're all good
you
ones.
know, interesting because you're on step 9. So my experience is steps 4 through 9 really are helpful. I mean, that is doing the work of getting rid of the toxic shame. So, does it address all of the trauma of the past? If you've done a searching and fearless moral inventory, that's step 4. And if you have shared that, I mean, here's the flip side of it. And I'm not saying you did or didn't. I know lots of people who left out chunks of things that should have been in their 4th step that would have helped them, navigate navigate getting rid of the shame. And you don't get rid of shame 100%, but you learn to identify it and not get spiraled into it. There are trauma, there is trauma work, body work. I mentioned it earlier, EMDR, somatic experience. There may be some specific issues that, as your CSAT has identified, that you could do some specific trauma work on. The other thing, the finding peace, there's a free drop-in group on Fridays with Troy Love, but he does that work group, and that really is identifying abandonment wounds, betrayal wounds, neglect. I mean, all of these different wounds, and then the voices of shame that that follow up on that, and understanding and identifying that so that you know which who's really talking. Is it the shame, or is it your adult self? Could be really helpful. But this is a journey, and like, great, you're 2 years in and you are doing the work. Hopefully you're doing 10, 11, and 12, because I'm sure your sponsor and CSAT talked about that. 10 and 11 and 12 are the steps that we do as maintenance steps, so that we take care of the mess now. We don't have to do this all over again with 4th and 5th step. Oh, you can, don't get me wrong, but not the major one. I never had to do the
You can do the
major
whole
one over
thing
again.
over
I know,
and
but
over
I
and over again.
never did the major. I did the most major, and then I've done pieces, but I've
Portions.
never had to do the major one. I did 2
It's a
major
good
ones.
thing.
Yeah, no, I
Anyway,
know, but like,
let me
anyway,
answer this.
so
We can talk
please.
about this stuff. We'll compare our stuff at some
Yeah.
point. So I have a lot of questions, not questions, but suggestions. And they're kind of different, because they're kind of different. One thing I just, from my own therapy, is I remember a few years in, my therapist said to me, Rob, there's no it. And I was like, what do you mean? And basically, what she was saying to me is it seemed like I was searching for one thing that happened to me or a couple of things that I
Yes.
experienced. And then I could say, oh, that's where this came from. Or if I just heal that, then everything's going to be okay. And she helped me understand that there is no one or two, or it's the whole thing. It's how I was treated, how I learned things, who I was, what happened to me, when it happened to me. There isn't just a, so in terms of doing trauma work, you don't get, first of all, you never get past it.
Right.
I live with the issues that I grew up with every single day, and they're pretty crappy issues. But I have learned to be at peace with them. I have learned to notice when they get escalated and say, no, talk to myself. I have
Hmm.
learned, I was just taking a note to myself that I want to go see my therapist. I haven't been in a long time, but some issues, so I go to someone I can talk to. I, um, I, you don't work through them. You learn how to live with them, how to adapt yourself to them, and be at peace with them. So, as that said, I wrote a few more things down. This is one of the reasons we do residential treatment is for people who are unable to really resolve and put together their acting out with what happened to them and find some real trauma work. And so I would just say to you, this is one of the things that we do at Seeking Integrity. It's part of the issues that we deal with. Um, what else did I write about? For me, when shame was debilitating, and I used to think it was really because of my acting out, and then I got sober, and I still had tremendous shame. And actually, what I had, I figured out later, was depression, and it
Mm.
showed up as I hate myself, I'm worthless. But that's because I was just so far down. And when I went on antidepressants, it's not that I didn't feel bad, but it was like, oh, that's a thing I could think about, or I could look at it this way, like I had choice inside of me. And that, so, certainly I think seeing a professional who deals with mental health issues like depression, because there may be other symptoms that you show that you may not think of as a problem. You may just think of them as sleeping in late, for example, every day. Um, oh, and the other thing is, and with all due respect, not every CSAT knows. Well, actually, there's two things I will say. Not every CSAT knows how to do trauma work, and not every
True.
trauma therapist. And so they may be great at supporting your recovery, helping you have guided through that, helping you be informed about the trauma and how it affects you. But working with someone who really focuses on, like Tammy said earlier, somatic work, the body, or EMDR, which is a form of trauma release. There are people who are very specific in the trauma work they do. And by the way, that doesn't mean you have to leave your therapist. It means you can say, I want to see someone for a few times to learn about this EMDR thing, or I want to join a trauma group that I go to separate from seeing you. So it can be additive, but trauma work is not sitting down and talking about your recovery. It's actually not really about sitting down and talking about whatever, as Tammy said, it's guided, it's intentional. And you either do it or you don't. And we have a friend. Here's something else you might consider. We have a colleague who's in Texas and a couple of colleagues around other places who do nothing but trauma work. And they will see you for 2 or 3 days in an intensive. And believe me, those things are life changing because these people really, they're trained in 5 different kinds of this kind of psychological work. So you can also reach out and we can recommend you to a whole bunch of people do intensives around this work. Yeah, and workshops and all that kind of stuff.
And going back to a qualified professional who understands addiction to diagnose and treat chronic depression, clinical anxiety, and some of those, because too often people get put on pills that aren't really effective. So making sure they have the right diagnosis and the training to do so makes a huge difference, like getting on the right thing if you need it. So, okay, next
Yeah.
question. My essay husband and I are heading toward a divorce since he refuses to seek any treatment, although admits addiction. We share a 1-year-old, and I was
Oh,
wondering if you have any advice on co-parenting with an addict who is most likely never seek recovery.
I'm just feeling my feelings about that because
Yeah.
it's just very sad. Although I will say to you, if it makes you feel any better, that the degree of tension and anxiety and conflict and shame and fear that comes up in a home where one parent is not sober and the other parent is worried all the time, that scenario could easily be more damaging to your child than the two of you not being together. And so I know my first thought would be about my child. And I just want you to know that the more consistent, the less tension. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into that. But anyway, I'm so, so sorry. And, to me, it's about boundaries, and it's something that you have to grow. It can be something as simple as when we see each other. Here's something: we're never going to meet at your house or my house. I'll be out front. You won't come in the house. A boundary. I need you to be here within a certain amount of time. Or, I think addicts are not particularly good at structure, boundaries. We'll get to it when we have time. You'll wait for us when we're late. I'll just talk about that with you, or I'll flirt with you, or I'll seduce you. So I think part of what you need to do is have external boundaries, time, place, checking in with other people, whatever, only going to certain places. There are external boundaries of these kids. And then there's emotional agreements you have. For example, I'm not going to put you down as their dad, and you're not going to put me down as their mom whenever we're in each other's homes. Those are emotional boundaries. And I do think really that this is a therapy issue. And it doesn't mean being in therapy forever. I think a couple could have maybe 3 to 5 sessions and figure this out. A lot of this is writing it down, making a list, agreeing, having a contract. So I think this is or a coach might be able to help with this kind of thing. So my answer is get help, and get active live help with people who can help guide you through the boundaries of co-parenting. Yeah.
And as someone who's been there, done that with somebody in active addiction, you can set up all the boundaries. I mean, keep your kiddo safe, but have realistic expectations that an addict in active addiction is still going to lie. They're still going to do all the things that serve themselves. So making sure you take care of your kiddo, you will do great. The kid will be completely good, but just have, a realistic expectation. So, if he can show up and actually follow a plan, that would be fantastic. But he hasn't wanted to follow the treatment plan or anything else thus far. So taking care of you, having child protectives, not child, no, friend of the court or whatever, having a plan with the legal system in your state, make sure you are doing the research, what you need to know, if something happens. So just trying to be realistic.
I want to add one more thing before we stop. I want to turn this first sentence around. You said,
Mhm,
my SA husband and I are heading toward divorce since he refuses to seek treatment. And I
mhm,
would say I would put it this way: I am headed toward divorce because I cannot tolerate, nor can I have my child
mm,
around someone who's unwell. I ask
mhm,
you to take it back.
mhm.
Whatever he does or doesn't do, you're doing this to protect yourself and your child.
Yes,
Until he shows demonstrative, I can't say that word, demonstrative, until he shows healing over
until he's
consistent over
able to
time.
demonstrate.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. You are taking responsibility for your life and protecting your child, and that way it doesn't put it on him. Your life is not dependent on what he does. You're taking your own life back. So I want to empower you like that, and
Well
I'm going to
said.
go
I
have
agree.
dinner.
Yes. All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks for the great
See
questions.
y'all. Thanks for the
Bring
time.
back the unanswered ones next week. Bye.
Bye for now.